Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we look at copy on write, how copy on write helps us save storage, but also how it makes certain operations very immediate or instantaneous. So let's assume we have a specific file. Let's call it file number 1. And we go in here and we say, here is our file 1. And we can make this too. And that in that file, we have content, right? So we have a couple of paragraphs or whatever you want to call it. Internally, no matter how you look at a file or how it is stored, you always have chunks. In the worst case, a chunk is basically the block size of your storage or your storage device. It doesn't really matter. Just assume that if you have a file with 3 letters, it could be like 3 different chunks. You write ABC and you have 3 different letters, right? So that is that. So imagine that to be a view, a table of contents, so to speak, right? So you have this table of contents, but you also need to make sure that the actual data is stored somewhere, because otherwise we have a problem, right? So on our storage device, storage layer, whatever, we create those 3 additional chunks. And we say chunk 1, chunk 2, chunk 3. And that is the actual data. So because the file itself is basically just a reference to those blocks, we need to reference them. And that's why those green arrows are actually called references. A reference, basically, as I said, is the table of contents in the file of the file, and the data is stored somewhere else, right? In the table of contents, you have the headers. In the book, you actually have the actual data, the content itself. And now you can imagine you would create a copy of a book. So when you copy the book, you actually have to make a photocopy of every single page in the book, duplicating the number of pages. That is what normally happens when you create a copy of a file in a normal file system, right? If you create a copy on Windows of a file, the actual underlying data is also duplicated. And we know that everyone who ever created a copy of a large file, like a video file or something, you know that this operation actually takes time because the underlying data needs to be copied. With a copy on write file system, that is actually not how it works. So if I actually create a copy of file 1, and we're consistently naming that copy of file 1, I basically create a copy of the table of contents. Right? So I create an additional view, an additional set of references for the same data, meaning that I directly connect the new references to the same data, meaning I don't have to duplicate anything, and I'm actually saving storage. I basically just like that save 50% storage, right? That means if I copy a file that is a kilobyte in size, but doesn't really matter. But if it's a video file of multiple gigabytes, like 4K video or stuff, that is actually a quite sustainable or a substantial change in storage. So now the next thing, and that is the beauty, right? The creating the table of contents is basically instantaneous from how a person looks at that. If I want to create a snapshot now, I basically just have to create a view or a set of references at a certain specific point in time, right? So I can say my snapshot contains file number 1 here, file 1, and that had chunk 1, chunk 2, chunk 3. Same on the other side. I have copy file 1, and same thing, that has chunk 1, chunk 2, and chunk 3, right? So that means our snapshot actually references back to the same set of data, right? So we're having exactly the same stuff. If I now, for whatever reason, want to change something, like in this case, making chunk number 3 blue, I cannot reference back to the same data anymore, because my chunk number 3 here is still referenced from chunk 3, as well as from the 2 independent files in the snapshot. That means I actually have to go ahead and create a copy of that chunk number 3, and we call it modified chunk 3. And because it is blue, let's also make this blue, right? So that's our blue chunk. And now the file copy references that chunk specifically. So now we have this this active, this reference active, and this reference active. That way we can create immediate snapshots, which is cool, right? They don't really have impact on our storage capacity. They don't really have impact on our storage performance. And the best thing is that those snapshots stay they're super consistent. It's an immediate operation. We don't have to stop the world for anything. We can just keep going. Anyway, I hope this was interesting. I hope you learned something. And I also hope you come back for the next video. Thank you very much.